Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful blueprint for what it takes to rebuild a life. We're going to look at a specific case study, a husband and a father recovering from a gambling addiction, to explore what it actually takes to build a new life after the old one is completely gone.
Okay, let's jump right in. It's so easy to think that quitting an addiction is the final boss battle, right? You beat it and game over. You win. But for so many people, stopping is really just the beginning of a totally different kind of challenge, one that's a lot quieter, and honestly, sometimes a lot harder.
So, to really get a handle on the solution, we have to get brutally honest about the real problem. And the problem isn't just the urge to go back to the old habit. It's the huge, empty, silent void that the addiction leaves behind when it's gone. Now, this is what's so wild. We think of addiction as pure chaos, but in a lot of ways, it's not. It's a system, a really twisted one for sure, but it gives you a schedule, a mission, even a social circle. So when you rip that away, the entire structure of your life just collapses, and you're left with what you see on the right, this void, this crushing boredom, and something called anhedonia, which is just a fancy way of saying nothing feels good anymore. That empty space, that's where relapse loves to grow. So here's the absolute key takeaway. Recovery isn't just about demolition. It's about architecture. You can't just stand there with your willpower, staring at the ruins of your old life. You need a detailed blueprint to build something totally new, brick by brick.
Okay, so let's get into the first part of that blueprint. Let's see how this thing is built. We're talking about a practical, tactical plan for laying a solid new foundation. And it's designed to work not when you're feeling motivated and inspired, but for the moments when you're feeling absolutely nothing at all. And these are the big ones, the pillars of this new foundation. And look, this isn't some fluffy, inspirational talk. These are real, actionable systems for those moments when your motivation hits zero and the old wiring in your brain starts trying to take over again.
All right, first things first, you got to deal with the most immediate danger, right? The daily triggers that can come in like a tidal wave and just wash away all your progress in a single afternoon.
And a really powerful concept for this is something called urge surfing. See, instead of trying to fight a craving head-on, like you're trying to punch a wave, you learn to treat it like a wave. You see it coming, you acknowledge it, and you just ride it, because you know that every wave has a peak and every wave eventually fades away. You don't have to be stronger than the wave, you just have to stay on the board long enough for it to pass.
And this is how you actually do it. This isn't just theory. It's a literal, repeatable checklist for when you're in that moment of crisis. It takes all the panic and chaos of a trigger and turns it into a clear, step-by-step procedure. You just work the list. Am I hungry? Am I tired? Okay, I'm going to text my partner. I'm going to say my new identity out loud. It's a procedure.
Okay, so once you have a system in place for those daily fires, you can start shifting your focus to the deeper, long-term construction project. This is all about rebuilding trust with actions, not just words, and literally forging a new identity for yourself.
And trust is never rebuilt with one big, grand apology. It's rebuilt with a rhythm of small, consistent, even boring, transparent actions. This is what it looks like. A weekly sit-down to review the finances with total transparency. A daily check-in. Scheduled rituals. It's the boring consistency that proves the change is real.
And one of the most powerful rituals is something called the fatherhood anchor. It's so simple. It's just 10 non-negotiable minutes of focused, one-on-one, no phones allowed time with each kid, every single day. It sounds small, right? But each 10-minute session is another small, steady deposit into a trust account that was totally bankrupt.
But what do you do with the parts of your personality that got you into trouble in the first place? The love of risk, the need for action. Do you just have to kill that part of yourself? Well, this is where the whole idea of rebuilding gets really fascinating. Because the answer is no, you don't.
There's this psychological concept called sublimation. And the idea is pretty simple. You can take the raw energy from an impulse that's destructive, like high-risk gambling, and you can consciously redirect it. You can channel it into something that's actually constructive and good for the world.
And here's exactly how that works in the real world. That same high-risk energy that fueled the gambling, that is the exact same energy you need to be an entrepreneur and build a business. That desire for instant feedback you get from a slot machine, well, you can get that from competitive sports or from a career in sales. It's not about becoming a new person. It's about aiming the person you already are at a much better target. So when you put all of these pieces together, the trigger plans, the trust deposits, redirecting that old energy, what are you really doing?
You're writing. You're picking up a pen, and with every single action, you are writing an entirely new life story for yourself.
You know, there's this idea in psychology called the life story model of identity. And it basically says that, in a very real way, we are the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves. So real recovery means you have to consciously become a better author. You are not just a recovering addict. That was just the end of chapter 1.
And this reframes the entire journey. The past is no longer just a source of shame, it's the first act. It's the setup. It's the backstory that gives the hero the wisdom and the strength that he needs for his second act. He becomes a stronger, more reliable, more purposeful man because of what he went through, not in spite of it.
Ultimately, what this blueprint shows us is that rebuilding a life is about so much more than just stopping a bad habit. It's about consciously choosing to stop being the victim or the villain in your own story and stepping into the role of the hero. The past isn't your identity, it's your origin story. And the second act? It can begin any moment you decide it does.